welcome here to Air Crash Investigator, and today I'm going to have a look at an L39. It's a jet. There was a formation of two, and during the air show the number 2 had an accident. But before we carry on, please subscribe and then share with everybody else. The accident that we are talking about today is the L39. It was at the Klerksdorp Air Show, that was in South Africa. On the picture here, on this one here, you can actually see the two aircraft as they were taking off. Number 2 on the starboard side, and that would typically be, at this stage, just a number 2 takeoff position. Let's have a look at the flight history. As they entered the show, they did a loop from the left to the right, up like this. They would be at that stage in a VIC formation. Now that is why, if there was a third aircraft, this is why they call it a VIC, and this will then be a VIC starboard formation that the aircraft flew in. Very well done, nicely over the top, no problem. As briefed, they were now going to do a, let's call it a wing over through 180 degrees, or maybe if you want to call it a chandelle, and that's fine. And then as they have done that through 180 degrees, they'll now be able to do a loop in the reverse direction. In other words, now from left to right, they're going from right to left into the loop. But during this phase here, the turnabout, the number 1 tightened up the turnabout quite a bit, which immediately made number 2 lose his position, and he was now already quite a little bit behind, as you can see, also in a bigger loop than the number 1. This led him to be quite behind, and he would now do tail chasing to get back into position. So for now, the formation is more like a line astern, but I doubt if that was really the idea. But if it was the idea to go line astern, this is what a line astern looks like. And the number 2, here I just want to point out that he must stay clear of the slipstream of number 1, as that will seriously influence the performance of number 2, and that will make him go lose more distance during that, if he should end up in the slipstream. The next loop, just to show, here are the different loops. The number 1 is going to describe this white loop on the outside, and number 2, already on a bigger loop, he will have to cross over there and then to catch up somewhere in this vicinity, because by now he's been behind quite a bit. All right, so as they came down, number 1 started pitching down, and you can see on the video that all of a sudden he increased that pitch rate. There's a very clear increase in the pitch rate, and number 2 was caught by surprise. High G, it actually likes like number 2 had a already, let's call it a G stall just before entering into the slipstream, but now it's in the slipstream, and there's not much you can do about that. The aircraft now departed, it flew up, and then it went down straight, ended up in catastrophe. Obviously it was a very high energy crash, just to show out that here the aircraft before impact, the pilot managed to regain control of the aircraft. The airflow had recovered, and he was not anymore in a high G situation, but now obviously he's pulling very hard to get out. Unfortunately, there's not enough sky left for this one. So let's have a look at the video.
Well, folks, there you see good for pilot's license with instructor's rating. He's been flying formation since 2006 on the P166 Albatross, the L39 Albatross, the Yak 52 solo displays, and the Yak 55, L39, Yak 52. He took part in the Advanced World Aerobatics as a South African team member, 2010 SA Colors in aerobatics. And here you see beautiful formation flying by these 2 civilian jets, flying to the music of Top Gun. listening into the voice of the leader of the team. These are two really
Smoke on, go.
very pleasant guys. The smoke that you see there is very, very expensive smoke oil that is pumped across the exhaust system of the aircraft. So let me tell you a little bit about the L39 aircraft. See, there's no stand, so the L39C from country of origin is Czechoslovakia. It's a two-seat advanced trainer and light strike aircraft.
And rolling right, go. Smoke off.
Right, folks, please remain.
Well, slowing down the video quite considerably, here we can see where the trouble started for number 2. After the first loop, over the top, let's say they were busy doing a wing over or a chandelle, but you can see the very tightness that the lead put in there, which immediately, within a second, put number 2 behind. There you can see number 2 struggling in the slipstream of number 1, and he is also now in a bigger loop. For him to catch up, he had to tighten up the loop while number 1 stretched the loop at the top. But then as number 1 came down from that area, you can see that in the vertical down position, he had to tighten the loop now to get out. And as he tightened, unfortunately, number 2 didn't react enough, and he ended up inside the slipstream, high G, and the aircraft just departed at that moment in time.
And rolling right, go.
Well, welcome back from the video. I'm sure that everybody has now seen that. Now, there must be a few lessons that we can take away. And at this stage, I'm going to say the lessons that I think needs to be taken away. But first off, for those of us that are not doing this as a professional sport, who is not doing this every day, there's a couple of rules and regulations if you want to walk out. Just want to bring your attention. First qualification, if you want to go into formation aerobatics, is formation is a taught skill. Now I know everybody just hops in there and he says, okay, I'm flying our formation. No, you're not flying formation. You're flying close to another aircraft. You don't even know the language of formation flying. So please, you have to be founded on solid ground. Maybe that doesn't sound too good, but on solid principles at least. Secondly, aerobatics. And it's not a self-taught skill. I don't know where people get to this idea that if I can do a loop at a loop, then I'm an aerobaticist. You're not. You're just a danger, all right? You cannot teach yourself. Well, you can teach yourself and get away with it, and then we call it luck. But if you do the professional aerobatic course, then you have got a professional platform to work with. If you combine the two, the formation and the aerobatic qualifications, now we can start doing proper formation aerobatics, and then after that you can get your show rating. All right, stepping away from that, just a couple of tips for when you lead. Remember, do not lose the bigger picture when on stage. What I mean by that is the moment that you are flying in 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people, then all of a sudden we get a little bit of stage fright. But the things that we have to concentrate on is not the crowd. It's only the flight line, the height, and the speed. In other words, to position yourself. The same goes for number 2 and number 3 and how many is in the formation. You must know where you are in the bigger picture. Because if you need to break off, you need to know how, where, and when to safely break off. The leader must always concentrate on smooth. Now, there's a little bit of criticism here that I want to say, and I could see in the video there were at least 2 places where I can see that the lead increased the maneuver quite sharply without making a call. And that means that number 2 is just, he's already trying to catch up and stay in there. It is extremely difficult and hard work, especially in a jet. And unfortunately, there was no warning. The call could have gone, tightening up the loop, go. And that means that he would have then that 1 second, time. But if the lead runs out of position and he just quickly makes a maneuver, number 2 cannot respond in time. And that means that we end up in the slipstream. Now, you don't want to end up in a slipstream, because that'll put you further behind. If you're under high G loading and you're very close to the stall, the breakaway of the airflow over the wings means that the aircraft will depart. And in this case, as the number 2 came into the slipstream, the aircraft departed. He was not in control of it anymore, because it stalled, the airflow broke away, the aircraft pitched up, pitched down hard, and only when the aircraft was clear and clean of, let's call it contaminated air, he regained control. Unfortunately, if there was a little bit of height in the bag, I think he would have flown away from this one. The only critics at the ground, remember, there's nobody busy marking you. The people on the ground that really knows what you're doing, they know the dilemmas that you are facing once you're up there. They have got this, they really do understand. And they're not standing there with a little tick thing and say, oh, this is going wrong and stuff like that. So if you need to break off in an air show, break off. You can even do that in style, all right? But break off, go somewhere else, do something else. The commentator on the ground will take the show and carry on. Because remember, you are busy here with a highly well choreographed and highly skilled maneuver in front of people. It's not a test, it is a show. And therefore, if at stages you feel that you cannot stay there, break off. And then the last thing, remember just to put a little bit of height in the bag. Just a little bit of height in the bag will help us out if anything goes wrong. How much? Well, I think between 300 and 500 foot extra in the bag is all that we need. For now, I just want to say, keep it safe until next time.